I'm Sarah Brown, and this is The Mothers, real conversations with leaders, creators, and thinkers about who we are, what we want, and how we build meaningful lives alongside motherhood. Hello, everyone. I'm Sarah Brown, and welcome back to The Mothers, where we get to explore the inner worlds of mothers out there making a dent in the universe and raising kids. A reminder to please take a second to follow and subscribe wherever you're listening and drop a 5-star review if we earn it this episode. And I think we will, because today we really brought in the big guns. We have one of the more impressive full humans I know. Lexi Reese, a Google celebrity, my Sheryl Sandberg, currently co-founder and CEO of the enterprise AI navigation system Lanai. But before that, she scaled the Global Programmatic Ad Business at Google to become our third largest revenue line. And our rev lines were pretty high, pretty high. Then she moved on to be the COO of Gusto, a unicorn, but don't call it a unicorn, as you'll hear Lexi explain in our interview. She scaled their customer base from 200,000 businesses to 1 million. Always wanted to look for ways to do more to help others thrive. After Gusto and before Lanai, she launched a campaign for election to the U.S. Senate to represent California. I'm tired just thinking about all of this, because in addition to occupying big seats at big tables and beautifully trying to make more seats for others, Lexi is the mother of 2 girls. And for her, motherhood has been a superpower, helping her become an even better leader and listener at work and at home. As she says in our interview, I think of motherhood as a leadership laboratory, because a great leader makes people better first in their presence, but then it lasts in their absence. It stays with you. And that is what motherhood is. Talking to Lexi made me nostalgic for Google. There are so many good eggs there. People like Lexi who are motivated to do good, to operate with integrity, to be useful and effective, who are not interested in being or being around the biggest ego in the room. People like Lexi who are incredibly fucking smart and also totally human, curious about what makes themselves tick, and who want to help others become the best versions of themselves. I first met Lexi when she was on the leadership team for a sales offsite with a few thousand folks. The energy in the room had waned, as it often can, even at Google. Lexi noticed. She jumped on stage, probably 7 to 8 months pregnant, and led the large room in a round of jumping jacks. It was hilarious. Her bump was a bumpin', but she was there, with us, a team player no matter the role. And then she stole my heart when she referenced Mary Oliver's "What is it you plan to do with your one wild and precious life?" in her goodbye email at Google. And this was before it became very trendy to do so. In both of those anecdotes, you see what makes her magical. A leader with heart and humanity. A leader who is not living with blinders on to the world outside of the office, but someone who is trying to honor all parts of life in the way that she operates, in what she expects of herself, and in what she expects of others. In true Googler fashion, this conversation is rich with practical tips for how to find some order and balance when carrying work, kids, and a partner, and somehow a life beyond that too. As I say toward the end of this conversation, when I think of Lexi, I think of leadership, integrity, excellence, 10x, human, and a big fucking hug. Thank you, Lexi, for bringing us a big fucking hug. You've done some pretty magical stuff with your one wild and precious life, and it's still only the beginning. So everyone, please enjoy our conversation with the one and only Lexi Reese.
And for going out on a bit of a limb, when I sent you a LinkedIn message, you're like, hey, do you remember me?
Hey, it's me, Sarah.
I mean, even if you didn't, I appreciate that you made it feel like you did.
Oh, it was fantastic. I love LinkedIn as a product sucks, except for things like this.
Yes.
True.
I have to say, I feel like doctors and lifelong Googlers are equally inactive on LinkedIn until they move into a new career. So I had never posted on LinkedIn until leaving and starting this thing, and shocked at how limited the features are in terms of posting, and how you have no concept of really what you're posting before you're posting it. It's really, it could be better. But thank you really for doing this. And I will reiterate, you probably know this. You were a celebrity at Google when I was there. I vividly remember when We were on some LCS integrated, what was it? IS, I don't even remember, something around financial services, whatever we were on, some offsite. And no one was happy. The energy had left the building, and you were like significantly pregnant, and you popped up and you were like, okay, guys, we're gonna really get the energy going here. And you led us in like calisthenics / jumping jack routine. And I have never forgotten.
My hero.
And yeah, in some small way, it really actually is a story I think that contributes to why I'm curious about the premise of this whole podcast. The stories being told about mothers were always so kind of siloed in roles as parents, roles as corporate leaders, but there was really never an integrated moment of seeing someone celebrated strong, powerful, capable, and all of these things all at once. And the few times that those sides of their life like merged, I think often of when Serena Williams retired and she had this Vogue magazine spread, why she was retiring. It was the beautiful Annie Leibovitz photo. And she mentioned how, Tom Brady doesn't have to have kids and I want to have kids. So that's kind of why I'm going to leave. And I was like, wow, it was just such an aha moment of we can be all these things at once. And in some ways, how empowering it would be and helpful it would be to be able to be all of these things at once. And show that mothers are not only moms at pickup. Mothers are also people that are in the C-suite and driving large businesses and are also sometimes at pickup or drop, you know what I mean? And they're doing all of these things. So that kind of set me on this path of like, let's go find these women that are making a dent in the universe and raising the next generation and talk to them, not about their kids, not necessarily about their job, but like, how are they doing? How has having children like informed their sense of purpose and their mission and like what matters in life? Having kids certainly makes things harder, but it's also there's a reason people have them, and they also can add a lot to life and a lot of perspective. And so that was the conversation that I felt I hadn't been hearing and was the one that I was craving and seems to be one that's resonating with folks as we're building this up. And often we get wonderful guests who are like kind of like, thank you for asking me this question. Like, I kind of been wanting to be able to share this.
Yeah, no, I love it. I think that it is so helpful to have models of people that if you can see it, you can be it. And I think, Eileen Naughton was really that for me. I'm sure we'll get into that, but was a person who integrated her life and her work and her passions and And I think you're basically scaling that for people that aren't lucky enough to have someone like that in their life, which I think so much more prevalent.
Yeah. Well, amazing. And again, thank you for carving out time in here. I know you are immediately totally busy. So thank you.
Yeah.
But what we like to start with is asking people to describe how they would tell their story and how we get to the Lexi of today. And if there are through lines for you that you're aware of, or after you finish telling the story, you might notice maybe there are some in retrospect. But yeah, you've had some, to me, inspiring moves. You've tried a lot of different things. I've seen maybe a little bit of a through line, but I would love to hear your version of, the journey to Lexi of 2025.
Yeah. I love the question. It's actually the first question I ask everybody who I interview, which is if your life were a book, what would it be called?
Yeah.
And what are the major chapters? Because I think we focus too much as a society on what people have done and not why they've done it. And the why actually is much more telling. So I also think it's much easier to tell this story linearly in retrospect. It did not feel linear at the time. Majored in Latin American history and worked on a film about adolescent sex workers in Nicaragua when I first got out of school. Chapter 1 of my career was always passion driven. Where did I feel like I could have impact? I realized really quickly I wasn't a good documentary filmmaker, but I was very good at raising money for the film. And I did some stints in microfinance, giving money to people living in poverty to start their own business, effectively trying to get at the inception of why were these girls selling their bodies. And mostly it was to help their mothers who were often single and often didn't have enough income And so if we could get everybody a good family sustaining job, then we would solve for the ripple effects on communities that happen as a result of not having that.
Mm-hmm.
I had a mentor who sent me into chapter 2, which was all about business. He said, your heart's in the right place, but go get some hard skills.
Mm-hmm.
And I went from Harvard Business School to American Express and to Google. What those things have in common, they were really well-respected brands that taught me effectively how the language of business is really the language of movement building. Every business, just like every nonprofit and effectively every government, has a vision for the future, a mission on how they're going to make that vision a reality. And then they have a plan with a team and a structure to get that mission accomplished. And I felt like both at American Express and Google, I was learning from the best of the best. At Google, we both, Sarah, started when it was small and grew it to when it was big. I wanted to do that again. And the last chapter, the chapter that I am currently in, has been a lot about entrepreneurship. I helped to run an HR platform called Gusto and now lead an AI startup called Lanai, which is AI observability. And I think the through line through all of this is, how do we create a world that's better than we found it, which I've always felt really strongly about. But ever since I've had children, I feel is my life's mission. How do we empower everyone to thrive, not just survive?
Yeah. Where did that come from initially, and how did having kids deepen that?
Yeah, where did it come from initially? You know, that's it. It's interesting. I don't know that it came from any one thing. I think a couple key influences. My mother went back to work in her late 30s, actually, or worked for the first time for a paycheck in her late 30s. Having been always really smart and really active as a volunteer. But when my father's career was not going well and eventually he lost his job, she realized she's going to have to provide for 3 kids. And she had come from an Irish immigrant family that really came here illegally through Canada. And my great grandfather worked on a printing press. And then he eventually negotiated or tried to negotiate a strike with the owner of that printing press and wasn't treated well, and then started a competitive paper that was in our family for 4 generations. And I think
cool.
Anybody who is in touch with their immigrant background has a hunger and a hustle and a sense of there is no entitlement. You have to work hard for everything that you have. And if you have something, you have to help others because you remember very vividly the people that helped you. So I think that my mother's story of finding great success professionally, but by virtue of adversity, and this family, you got to leave it better than you found it type of ethos was really important. And I think you asked about my kiddos, but I don't want to do that.
Oh, yeah. Well, yeah, you did mention, I was curious, you had alluded to that idea of leaving things and helping others to have a better life than what they received and where things started. That kind of became more your life's mission once you had kids. That was clarifying, but I was curious how so or why.
Yeah. I mean, I think for us, it was really hard to have kids. So my daughter is now 15, going to be 16, and my other daughter is 12, going to be 13. So I'll have 2 teens.
You're in it.
Yeah, I'm in it.
You got this. Be brave.
They're amazing. They're amazing kids. But
Sure.
right before Scout, my oldest, was born, my husband had something called VTAC, which is also referred to as widowmaker's disease. So he had a 95% blockage in his left artery that nobody understood and nobody knew about. And we were very close to losing him. And 3 weeks later, Scout was born. And we had worked for 2 years to have Scout. So I think the fragility of life and the miracle of life, which are, so often stated, they're on pillows and doilies and those things.
Yeah.
But the visceral feeling of almost losing the love of my life, and then him surviving, and the two of us bringing this amazing life into the world, every day since then has felt really, truly like, of course, hard days or whatever. But I just can't forget that.
Yeah.
And the combination of that and having our second child was even harder biologically. We had both kids with IVF. But I'm so grateful and blessed for the opportunity, and also so cognizant of how resources and the having resources or the lack thereof becomes so instrumental in your ability to raise children in a way that helps them be their best selves.
Totally.
And I think I've just always, because I started that career with young girls who are now basically the age of both of my girls.
Yeah.
And how both unfair and not smart it is to not have policies and societies that support all mothers and children to thrive. Because why wouldn't we want that?
I know. I know. And how even people with tremendous resources often feel like they could use more. And even if they have financial resources, maybe they don't have the sort of the support family community resources like it does. One of the first business ideas that actually V and I were collaborating on too before leaving was in this childcare space, it was much to my surprise that we wound up being a nanny family. I was very much like, our kids will go to daycare. Like I'm a, I don't know, blue collar public school kid. And when we found V, who is such a gift and so talented at this skill, and with each kid after that, you have a feminist awakening a little bit of like, there has to be a better way in all senses of what this experience is. And for me, it felt like the model and the brand and the support and the respect for all things in the nanny childcare space is just broken. It comes from a similar place where there's so much privilege that goes into this, and yet it's also a necessity, and theoretically raising and having children is a public good, but it's really on us, and we've all parts of it feel alone. So it's I don't know. I very much understand what you're pushing at, and I agree.
Yeah, I understand where you're headed, Sarah, and I agree. I mean, the data in America is really damning. We have unaffordable childcare. We have no national paid leave. We have persistent wage inequities that particularly penalize mothers. And these aren't just women's issues; they're economic imperatives. And we almost treat motherhood politically as a bug in the system that needs to be bugged.
Yes.
As opposed to the best feature of the most incredible product that is life. That is a life worth living. And so there's so much we could do. And obviously, piece of my career I didn't talk about was after having been the COO of a quote unquote unicorn company, which despise that term. There is no such thing as unicorns.
Don't tell my 4-year-old that. They're definitely
for them there is.
Yes.
But for adults who work, it's just hard work.
For sure.
But I had an idea for a startup that has become Lanai with a great partner named Steve Herod. But the other startup was a Senate campaign. To run for politics is to start something, but you are the product. Your policies are the features. And there's a double-sided marketplace of funders on one side and voters. And you have to raise money to get voters to know you exist, to consider you as a good candidate, and then to vote for you. So we often think of these two things as totally separate. And I think it would behoove us to realize they're very similar. And that we spend more time considering what, food we're going to eat than what politician we're going to vote for. And if we really had this idea that to be a mother, metaphorically and literally, but I also believe in the metaphor of to have the ethos of your job and responsibility in life is to raise human beings that take care of the world we're living in, you would really work hard to get men and women in leadership positions at a federal, state, and local position, as well as support leaders in private sectors that understand and support that ethos. And right now, given that just statistically, we have majority certain race of men who are making all legal decisions and have decided that it's not okay to choose your health care, but it is okay to get a gun, which killing 25 kids a week. Like, it just doesn't make sense. So
I
you would
totally
say,
agree.
this product does not fit for the problems we need to solve.
Yeah. Yeah. And on some, this is a little bit of a roundabout, and I will maybe get in trouble for saying it, but back to your point a little bit on the motherhood being seen as like a bug, or mothers being a bug even. One of the things that I was curious about with this podcast was, we live in a capitalist society. I think motherhood and mothers is shoved in this corner of cutesy pillows and pink teddy bears. And I was curious about what it would be like for the world to hear from the mothers that are actually generating capital and carrying the wealth of society and are strong in that space. And that's maybe harder for these often heterosexual white men to ignore. It kind of like allows them to connect. We're connecting in their world a little bit differently. And I say that with deep admiration and gratitude for any mom. And I often wish that I was a mommy mom. But that was one thing I was curious about pulling out from these conversations, is hearing this from people that sit in those often white male suited spaces. But anyway, I did want to loop back a little bit. Your story where you were sharing about this terrifying health scare, your husband, and then your child is born, and then you have another child. I was curious what it felt like to then, this is a moment where you're like, life is precious, wild and precious life is a guiding principle of this whole podcast. What was it like to decide, or maybe it wasn't a decision, was it complicated to go back into the workplace and like figure out how you wanted to use your time away from something that has, in a new way, was seen as so precious and maybe limited? I was curious. I think a lot of people in different circumstances sometimes grapple with this thing over here is the most precious and important thing in my life. How do I find strength, rationale, whatever it is, to spend my time away?
Yes, I knew that I was going back to work, and I had to go back to work. But more importantly, I wanted to go back to work. And I absolutely love my kids. And I think we have a stronger relationship because we spend time apart. And I think that's such an individual decision for people. But I feel like it's great to have this podcast to talk about that decision. Life is, you're always becoming, right? Like, we're never done, hopefully. And you're in a constant process of evaluating, what do I love? What am I good at? And how do I want to design my life? And I think the best advice I got was a coach who's a Buddhist. He said, Lexi, life is an empty plate. And in any season, you choose what to put on that plate. And the goal is just being conscious in your choices in any given season. And that was the absolute best advice I could get at that moment in my career, because I was choosing to go back to work, but the mistake I made was going back to work as if I didn't have a child. I was doing all-nighters, all-night flights, red eyes between California and New York, and then coming home to breastfeed, and then trying to fit in the mother's room in the day. And this is where it helped to have a female boss, Eileen Naughton, who said, Lexi, your 75% is everyone's 120%. Work at 75%. She was giving me permission to be more rigorous in how much time I spent at work. And if you combine that with the metaphor of the empty plate, it's like, literally, how much time are you going to put in at work, and how much time will you spend at home? And in the time you'll have at work, this is what I feel like is a superpower of people who take care of anyone other than themselves. And that could be their parents, that could be their siblings, or whatever. There's lots of ways to mother. Is you become relentless, or it's an opportunity to become relentless in prioritization in a way that I think was completely not a skill set of mine prior to having human beings to take care of.
And of course, it went seamlessly right away. An easy transition.
Seamlessly. It was perfect.
I said 75% Okay, I could do that. Done.
As you famously had a spreadsheet, maybe you still do, about like managing your time down to the minute. But I'm curious, what was the real experience?
Yeah,
like,
how do you
transitioning
implement that,
down to
actually?
75%?
And what does that even mean? You're like, okay, hypothetically, that sounds.
Yeah. So obviously it did not go perfectly right away. For example, one moment of having breast milk leaking out of my shirt as I was talking to the most senior person in our organization.
This is a shared experience of some really high-powered women that we've been talking to.
Yeah.
The unintentional leakage in serious moments. So yeah.
Yeah. I think actually, if you think about how do you take care of your mind, body, heart, and spirit, what is true and is unique to people who have actually brought children into the world physically is that your body is this foreign sci-fi creature. Like your baby is in you, then it's on you, and then it's near you, and then it's this long process of distancing oneself.
And it's a great description that I haven't heard, but very much identify with.
Right.
That I've been looking for.
And your kids are so attached to you for so long. And oftentimes they're like, God, I need space. But then when they're ready to detach, you're like ready to attach.
Yeah.
I'm like, for my teens, who it's so normal to want to spend more time with your kids than your parents. I'm like, movie night. Anyway, back to the actual how do we do it so we make it tangible for your audience. No red eyes. There's no reason to do red eyes anymore if you're a working parent. It feels like you have to, but you don't have to. And if you do, don't do them more than once a quarter. It just kills your body. And with the miracle of Zoom post-COVID, that's a real bonus that we have options.
Yeah, that's true.
Number 2 is keep your time limits. It doesn't have to be, though I do love color coding calendar according to priorities and measuring your calendar, which AI makes easier. Like, these were my priorities. This is how much time I thought I was going to spend. Did I spend that time? That's a little anal for some people. But just treat the following things as meetings, just like you do at work. When will you leave? And leave your computer at work to not check in and not check on. And then get home and put your cell phone away. And you'll say, I can't do that because of do it. Do it.
Yes.
And maybe that's just 2 nights a week, or maybe sometimes it's 3 nights a week. But don't make it less than 2.
Yeah.
And maybe at times you have to go back online after your kid goes to sleep, but you need to sleep too.
Right.
So if you don't calendar, like, I'm going to try to sleep 8 hours a day, after the really hard times when you're breastfeeding all the time, it catches up with you. So those are some just very basic hints of stop time and start times for work, and then your non-work time being really deliberate, that you're not working your day job, you're engaged with your kids.
Yeah. That's helpful. We've had questions from audience, from listeners being like, can you give me some tips?
Tangible action items. Yeah.
Do you, from that early, so your first kids were at Google, did you have all kids while you were at Google or no?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. How did showing up as I don't know, did you show up as a mother? Where does your identity as a mother exist when you're at work or when you're outside of work? Or is it something that you think of as an identifier?
I think of motherhood as kind of a leadership laboratory.
Cool.
Honestly, because I think that for me, a great leader makes people better first in their presence, but then it lasts in their absence. It stays with you. And that is what motherhood is. I think I made the mistake early on of thinking it was my job to product manage my kids and like have them come out in this way. Like, there was a right way to be. And I think society really pushes that on you. Like, there's almost a grading of kids. Whereas I think the best thing I did for motherhood was go to something called the Hoffman Institute, which is, they talk about 7 years of therapy in 7 days. And it effectively traces, what are your patterns? How do you show up in the world in a patterned way? Where did you get those patterns? Often tracing family history, finding compassion for the people who potentially gave you these patterns and yourself.
Yeah.
And then saying, what is my new operating system?
Mm-hmm.
And so I was inspired to go to this because my kiddo at probably age 8, I didn't go until she was 11, but she said to me at age 8 while we were on a bike ride and I was saying something like, get to the side of the road, or she said, Mom, it just feels like everything I do is not correct. And all that you tell me is what I should do differently. And she was just saying it in her like
Sure.
little authentic before she inherits ways to not give direct feedback.
Yeah.
But she's saying her experience. And I'm glad she couldn't see me because I was biking behind her and I was just weeping.
Yeah, I get it. Yeah.
But I tell that story because I think effectively she was saying, I need to be mothered differently, which is another way of saying I need to be led differently.
Mm.
The best leaders situationally adjust
Yeah.
how they show up based on really deeply understanding the people that they're leading. It doesn't mean they lower their standards. Obviously, I'm not letting her ride her bike in the middle of the road.
Come on, actually get back in there.
But it does mean taking the time to know these little people and know how they want to be treated, not just how you assume or how you would want to be treated.
Yeah. Yeah. But you're doing a great job with little kid over there. Tell him to get off the road.
So beautiful that you actually took that to heart and did something about it, because many people might just hear that like, oh, well, you're just an 8-year-old and you don't know anything. And I'm the mom and I'm telling you what you need to do. Like, you were able to hear that and reflect on that. Okay, how can I meet her where she's at while also honoring my role and responsibility? I think that's so beautiful.
It does, as you're saying that too. It does reflect my impression of you as a leader, Lexi, in a work setting of you're there in service of others as much as you are leading based on the strategic principles that you need to be guiding the organization to.
It seems like you see the bigger picture, right? Of this is the ultimate goal. And how do we get there still while you being authentic to yourself and how you want to show up? And ultimately, as long as we get to this endpoint together, we can adjust.
Yeah.
That's a really admirable trait, professionally and personally.
Again, when you're on a podcast, you can make it seem so perfect, but I think the idea, coming back to the question, is like what I identify with motherhood is it gives you a lot of perspective that you otherwise didn't have. I think you pointed to this poem I wrote to people for Mother's Day, because I think Mother's Day is crushing for a lot of folks who are trying to have kids and can't, who've lost their children, who maybe have not chosen to be a mother. And to your point, Sarah, I think there's been a commercialization of motherhood that effectively is very exclusionary for those who make different choices, and a little bit culty and completely ignore men, who I think there are a ton of men, and lucky to be married one of them, who often take on roles that historically have been assigned to quote unquote mothers. But for all of this, it's just it's the perspective that there is no right way. There's just a way forward that usually entails a lot more listening than one might otherwise be accustomed to.
How are you we talked about this in another interview where there's all the theory of giving space at work or anywhere for mothers, parents to do what they need to do or work a little bit differently or adjust their schedules, etc. But to give space, there's talking about motherhood and supporting mothers and supporting parents in a working setting. And then there's sort of in practice what that means, which I've always sensed that in for-profit or otherwise organizations, it often doesn't feel like there's time. Like that's nice, but we also need this done now. I know organizations are able to fight this. And I think it was always interesting to me, Google, one of the wealthiest companies in the world, was able to do a pretty good job, but what if you're a company that has a small number of employees and it's really hard to cover maternity leave in the way that you actually would like to, or it's really hard to adjust to be flexible on schedules and stuff. I didn't know of what you've seen or organization you've been a part of, what it means from a mindset perspective and then in practice to like give space for parents to parent and be really effective at work. What makes that real? Or is it endlessly kind of impossible?
Yes.
So, no, it's not impossible. I think that it's kind of on both the individual and the company, but I'll answer it from a company perspective. If you have a money minting machine that is Google AdWords or something like it, there's not that many, but now we have a couple more in AI.
Yeah.
There is literally no reason not to be super generous with your caretaking benefits.
Mm-hmm.
And by that, I mean, you're basically filling in where our government has left off, which is help people pay for childcare, help people take the amount of time they need to be able to be with their child, again, of any gender that are bringing children into the world. And I think it's important that all genders are offered the benefit, because I think where it gets dicey, and in fact, you insist on people taking it.
Yes.
Where it gets very tricky is if you worked 4 months left and we have a 6-month calibration cycle, and I'm evaluating your performance against people who've been there for 6 months. Tactically, it's very hard to equitably evaluate people. And so therefore, if everybody who's in a caretaking role, or more importantly, like, you can do more creative things of everyone takes X period of time off within, 4 years, then everybody is going to come up against that same thing.
Yeah.
Most companies are not money minting machine. And so Lanai is an AI observability and security platform. It's starting up. We are well funded, but every dollar counts because customers, but they're not yet paying us for the pleasure of using the product. So the way that we're doing it, that I encourage other people to, is don't put money into things that are frivolous, like ping pong tables and fancy snacks and fancy catering or what have you. If as a culture you have decided that community is an important value, and that community means building inclusive community inside and outside of work. So
I love that.
Labeling community as a value and articulating that is what it means, and then having your benefits back that up, and planning the work around it. So we work in the office. We collaborate in office 3 days a week. We respect the boundaries of people who have to caretake and need pickup times and need to alter their schedule. We just ask people to share that on their calendar. So I know my male product leader leaves at 5 most nights, because he must pick up the kids and he wants to be there for dinner and pickup time. And then he's back online, usually from, say, 8:30 to 10. And they know that I come in at 10 on Monday, Wednesday, Fridays, because I work out and take my kids to work. So I think that people mistake still a ton of FaceTime with, we're grinding it. We're killing it. And it's like, fundamentally, I don't believe that people killing themselves in any period of time or a sustained period of time builds a sustainable company. And I know that sounds really simple, basically schedules and good benefits for caretakers, but that's how I think people do it.
That's great. I also love mentioning that it's for everyone, all caretakers, because so often most of us experience right now, it's like, okay, the mom gave birth, so she gets the time off, and the dad goes back after, in these traditional heterosexual relationships where it's like, then the dad goes back after 2 weeks, and it perpetuates this cycle of like, well, the mom does the sacrificing and the staying home and the recut, whatever. And so I think that's incredible to acknowledge, like, both sides. And
I agree. The gender roles that are sort of entrenched within that first, depending on how lucky you are on whatever leave you have, they're like, they take root then. I mean, I fell into a lot of classic woman, wife, mom role because I was there. And I have a husband doesn't care for that. It doesn't need that to be true, but it is interesting how that does by default. You kind of fall into these roles, which does make me think, Lexi, you strike me as someone who has always somehow known yourself, even as much as you were curious about who you wanted to be, perhaps. I was wondering if the experience of bringing children into the world, becoming a mother, was that a period of, was there a time of losing yourself or kind of re-understanding who I am? You talked about the process of being pregnant and delivering a child feels very foreign.
Yeah.
But did you have an identity crisis or did you breeze right through it?
Yeah. I think the early days of childhood, again, I had a strong mom who had raised kids as a working parent. I had a strong sister who had raised kids as working parent, and I had a boss who was a working parent.
Mm-hmm.
And I therefore had models of if you can see it, you can be it. So I had discomfort at times with my husband has more flexibility in being home, actually.
Mm-hmm.
He works as well, but he can be with the kids. And he is naturally more of a playful person. And I think figuring out our relationship in the context of kids, because just like there are seasons of priorities, there are seasons for when different caretakers can major in caretaking, minor in caretaking. And when kids are baby, it really, if you're choosing, making certain choices of how you want to take your kids, like it has to be the mom.
Yeah.
And I was making that choice. We were making that choice, but I felt some resentment almost of, again, the guy had just had a life-threatening experience. So he was quite fragile. And still, you need a partner to show that. Exactly. So there were some not proud moments of like, I know you had a fucking near heart attack, but like, yeah, you're alive. Wake up. I think there were times, and I know women feel this, and I guess I would say it's totally normal to at times feel these emotions, whether they're rage or deep sadness or wondering if you're ever going to like feel integrated again. And this concept of it's temporary, it's a season. Everything is a season. Like your kid's finicky, it will stop eventually. Your relationship with your kid, with your husband or life partner is not as good as it can be. As long as you keep communicating that, as long as you are articulating, and we found this vocabulary through Hoffman that I thought was really helpful, of when we're not at our best self, it could be for lots of reasons, but being in that place is literally like below our line of resiliency. Maybe we didn't sleep well, maybe we didn't eat well, maybe we had an altercation at work that we bring home, whatever it is. But we're like below the line of resiliency, and our ability to be triggered and then come out as whatever we come out in our stress position is higher. And so if you just say to your partner, and now we say this to our kids, you know what, I'm really below the line, which is effectively like buyer beware. Treat me with caution, like
that.
If I'm below the line, a little affirmation goes a long way. Some acts of service go a long way, like do the dishes without being asked, all that kind of stuff.
We love a love language.
That sounds fancy, V.
Love languages?
Oh, love language. I thought you said level up.
Oh. No, but yes. No, I said I love a love language, communicating that of like.
I should say that to my husband.
Level up.
Just level up, man.
Yeah. Well, at one point, my husband said, I feel like you're constantly giving me a performance review. And that was a similar wake-up call of, man, am I really critical?
Yeah.
But the person I'm most critical of is myself.
Yeah.
And again, Hoffman, I don't mean to be a poster child, but whatever. At some point, you can have an awakening of like, that doesn't serve.
Right.
Nobody wins to beat yourself up before you get out of bed in the morning, just in your head. It's exhausting.
Yes. I find the crotchety below the line mindset comes a lot when you feel like you're doing so much for so many people in a way that might not be appreciated or it's not all working. And can you just do this one thing? And classic, like, is when your cup is empty, your ability to show up as a kind, empathetic person is like limited.
Yeah.
But is very common. And I think anyone on all sides of the gender spectrum like will experience this. I do think there is some sort of interesting dynamic. And I think within all of that, probably each would have its own dynamic. But I think speaking as myself, a woman and a mother, I think there are things that we absorb and we do without it being noticed or acknowledged. And most of the time that's fine. But then when it reaches a point, you're like, hey,
I'm a little tired.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I appreciate you airing out, like, I think anger is normal, and I think that's
Mhm.
okay, and I think we can, talk to your partner and air that out and have that be received without, like, "Oh my god, something's broken," but have that
Mm.
be received with curiosity and, "Where is this coming from?" And your point that it's coming often from self-criticism.
Right. And I think it's good to articulate when your kids are older, here's the parent that I want to be.
Mhm.
And you have a right to call me out when I'm not that way.
Yeah.
But ultimately, what I want to be as a parent is the best partner to you in being your best self.
Right.
So if what I'm doing is letting you down on that front, let's talk about it. And similarly, I'm going to tell you if I think you have potential that you're not realizing because of any one thing. And my kids now, I mean, I literally talk to my kids like this. They roll their eyes, oh, mom, but I don't know another way because I feel like this is a team sport. We're on the team. So yes, and I have never done this before. So the likelihood of me being the best parent for my two kids is very low,
Yeah.
given they've never been the age they are now. I've never parented at this age now, and we're just experimenting.
Yeah. Yeah.
You have such a great way of like receiving. I'm sure this comes from like, I don't know.
Being
Your
shitty
work-
so many times and receiving a lot of feedback.
Well, I mean, if that's how you want to say it, that's how I was going to say it. No, but like, I imagine that comes from work environments, school environments, whatever it is, that like receiving information and being able to hear it and say, like, this is not a personal thing. It's not, I'm a bad person. You're doing this wrong, whatever. I see this untapped potential, or I see that this other opportunity or other thing, and you can get there and you're able to hear it and be like, okay, like, let's change that. And I imagine like this, it works really well in your home setting with your kids, and then being an employer and an employee. And like, I imagine the people that are lucky enough to work under you feel like, I don't know, I would feel so confident being able to come to you and say, I need this, or asking alternatively, like for criticism and critique. Cause if you can receive it so gracefully, then like, I'd trust you to like give it to me. So I feel like your kids and the people you work with are so lucky to work with someone who models that. Cause I think a lot of people want to do that, but then if they were to receive that, they'd be like very defensive.
I appreciate you saying that, V. I do feel like the instinct to defend oneself is such a natural instinct. I definitely think our culture, culturally, it's winning and losing. It's winning and losing, as opposed to it's expanding.
Yep.
It's expanding. And I think I was really bad at this. I think I'm still trying to model this, but
Sure.
I feel like this is where it is really important. I know we're coming to the end of time to say that the community you surround yourself with of other caretaking parents inside and outside of work to be able to have these conversations with.
Yeah.
Your partner matters, the community you trust with the real stories of doing this to help you guide. And then whatever your caretaking choices are for your child, whether it's daycare, or we have had 5 women in our lives that have been caretaking for the kids, but really our family.
Yeah.
And Sarah, you mentioned this too, and getting back to go back to work or to stay at home is a decision like any other almost career decision. If again, your child is healthy and you have this choice, not everybody has this choice, but it's okay to say, I love my child. I'm not the best full-time caregiver at any one point.
Yeah.
And there are people whose life work
Mm-hmm.
is to raise amazing, well-fed, healthy children.
Mm-hmm.
And if you shine brightly in this environment and someone else shines brightly in this environment,
Yeah.
in the team sport that is child rearing and community building,
Yeah.
if we were in village life, it would be a community that would be helping you. We're just trying to figure that out
Yeah.
as a society here.
Oh, totally. Yes. The kibbutz model came up in one of our prior conversations. We're like, yes. Okay, I'm going to push us because I know we're running up on time. I want to ask you short answer questions, and now we can use the clock to make it short. But if you could go back to your new mom self, is there any one thing you would say to her?
your job as a parent is help your child be the best they can be and help them become who they are, period.
Yeah. Yeah. Is there anything, there's a theme of many things, I'm sure, but something that would have made it easier along the journey of motherhood so far?
I think, honestly, it would be living in a society that values caretaking.
Yes.
And that made it a societal priority to help people in caretaking positions thrive and not just survive. Barely.
Yes. Beautiful. And then last question. Your kids may be listening, or one day they will. Is there anything you'd like to say to them?
Your perspective is your superpower, and you both have incredibly brilliant perspectives on the world. And never let anyone question your worth and how phenomenal you both are.
Lexi, you're such a cool mom.
Yeah, you really are.
Becoming my mom. Thank you so much for this. I was like thinking in advance. I was like, okay, remember, get Lexi mindset. And I wrote down, you'll appreciate these things. I was like, when I think of Lexi, I think leadership, integrity, excellence, 10x, human, and a big fucking hug. Are you delivered?
Oh, that's so nice. That's so great. Something that, first of all, thank you for doing this. I'm so psyched for you. If I can be helpful to get other people that you're interested in having on here, that'd be great. But I did write my kids a letter the night before I went back to Google.
No way.
Or it could have been, might not have been the night before, but it was in a particularly hard time, actually. And it was called Why I Work. I still have that. I can send it to you if you want.
That's so beautiful.
I want to read that. Yeah.
But I think
Have they read it?
Have they read it?
Yeah.
It's a good question. I don't think so. I was going to say during the campaign, maybe I shared it with them, but I don't think so. But I did the whole Google commercial that we had.
No, I was just thinking about that. I write emails to my kids. Yes.
Yes, writing emails to my kids. But it was, no, you know what? It was not, it wasn't at Google. It was 2018. I'm looking at it now. So I was at Gusto.
Got it.
But that's a really nice practice to do in every season that you're working. So I'll send that to you guys.
Yeah, that's a beautiful idea. Well, thank you so much. Edie and I are going to debrief.
Oh my God, she's so cool and incredible.
I know.
So easy to talk to.
Yeah.
Also.
And leads big teams and does impressive resume stuff. And I didn't get to ask her enough about the Senate race that I hope she feels wildly proud of. That's an incredibly vulnerable, scary, courageous thing to do. So public. What is success like? I mean, I imagine her being so kind of tuned in to how to emotionally manage things. There's probably an ongoing process of defining what success is, whether you win or not, because only one person's going to win. But I can't imagine doing that with kids. So my bad, listeners. I should have asked more. We're going to have her back.
True.
But I love it. Also brought me back to Google of old. She's so of that do great, but also do good, and maybe in the other order. And trying to help people around her. The curiosity is so nice.
Yeah.
And the self-reflection is so nice. And the sort of human orientation as opposed to dollar orientation a little bit. And yet, and maybe even not and yet. And builds, scales significant businesses.
Yeah.
Gusto, the non-unicorn as she described it. But I attribute a ton of that to her, that massive success.
I know there's multiple things that I have admire about her. But first is this ability she was talking about right before she had her first child and her husband was going through this near-death experience. And first of all, what intense thing to have the most beautiful entry into this world and brush with exit to this world at the same time simultaneously. That's what you're so vulnerable in that time already. So to be experiencing something so deep and heavy is
Yeah.
That in and of itself is insane. But so many of us experience these intense things and then we acknowledge them for a brief period of time and then we kind of just move on.
Right.
And I feel like she's done such an incredible job of like acknowledging and harnessing that energy and being like, no, I am going to carry that with me in my everyday because I have experienced this.
Yeah.
And even though it might be too big to acknowledge every day, I'm going to because that's real and that's life.
Yeah.
And it actually has like changed the way that she
Yeah.
carries herself. So that I was like mind blown. But then also I thought it was so interesting that so many, like when we asked about like what are tangible things that you can do,
Yeah.
so much of it is just so I don't want to say obvious, but it's like, of course, like having a boundary and putting your phone away. And like, if someone needs to leave at 5:00 to pick up their kid, then I'm going to, of course you could do that. And I think that like, what a beautiful prime example. You know, so many people say like, that doesn't work or like, there's always a but she's like actively doing it and it is working. So,
Right.
and I'm like, there's no excuse.
That's
like,
true. That's true. That's
that
true.
it's clearly doable.
Yeah.
She's not sacrificing
Yeah.
one or the other.
It's maybe like so many things. The hardest part is deciding to do it, you know, except for everything that comes after. But I think that within that is the first part of deciding why you're doing it and committing to doing it. Because you're right, the tactics, you're not like boiling the ocean.
Right.
But the reason that you continue to do it is rooted in the why, which she said from the very beginning is something that she's very curious about. It's like, it's not what people do, but why are they doing it? It made me feel a little bit at home as someone who is like, I'm deeply meaning oriented in a way that is like too much often. And yet she is someone I think who also might describe herself in that, like everything is very meaningful. I found some quote in some, I don't know if it was from, I want to say it was maybe her undergrad, some publication from a prior school did an interview with her. And one of her closing quotes was about, don't solve for accomplishments, solve for meaning. And I was like, yes.
Love that.
And yeah, but how to marry meaning with business or like effectiveness in business. And yeah, I think the people that can do all of those things, often you're sort of rooted in one or the other. There are probably like 5 other parts of the pie, but to be able to find a way to marry those things. And I think what she said early on about how she was very, advocacy oriented and got into the documentary making and then into microfinance and the advice that she was able to listen to as opposed to run away from of you need to go like sort of learn the language of business, that she was able to listen to that and not be offended by it made a huge difference. So anyway, it's a big honor that she was willing and able to come talk to us. And I feel so grateful. And I really appreciate that she connected the dots between the theoretical and the practical. So that's also a big skill. It's something I often try to remember how to do.
I'll be more like her.
Yeah. And she also, I should say, as we close, she's the one that brought the Mary Oliver, tell me what it is you want to do with this one wild and precious life. That was her sign off when she left Google. She wrote a beautiful email that I wish I still had. Her whole framing is like, tell me what is it you want to do with your one wild and precious life. I think she's really lived by that of trying to do things intentionally that matter to her and not for any other reason. So anyway, Lexi, thank you so much.
Thank you, Lexi.
I'm glad I got to exist in your orbit and absorb at a distance as she was doing those, what do you call them?
Jumping jacks.
Jumping jacks.
And we're only slightly jealous of your daughters for getting to do your daughter.
I know. Okay, cool. Well, real fast, where is our joyfulness? It's a rainy day again.
I know, it's cozy.
The weather has been hard. I always take this question. I think I kind of cheat on it, to be honest, because I think the intent is like, what is something that brings you joy? And I usually kind of like force it into being something that like, how can I feel grateful or how can I feel at peace with something?
I appreciate your
So I apologize that I'm like butchering the question. I'm not answering the question.
Like, anyways, pivoting, I could share my joy.
So tell. Yes.
The boy has finally started enjoying music library classes.
Oh my
I signed up for 2 this week, and it is just so fun to watch them like experience genuine happiness around like these other little kiddos. And Miss what's her name? Miss Sienna at the library. It's just like so simple, and it's 30 minutes, and it's like so bare bones, and it just like in those moments, he's just so happy, and it like makes me so happy. So that's been our moment of joy this week. We went to one this morning and I signed up for another on Friday. So
Oh, that's so good.
So minimally we'll have 2 moments of joy this week.
Yeah. And it's nice that you find that joyful, because I otherwise, even if the kid's having a good time, I'm kind of like, oh my God, how much can we like bang this tambourine and sing and those like egg shakers and like
Totally.
a little bit of my version of that.
Luckily, they cap it. It's like 4 other babies, and it's they only have scarves. We don't have any annoying music.
Oh, the scar. That's good. That's good.
It's
for like sensory sensitive kids and their parents.
Yeah. It's all like a we sing kind of situation. So
that's good. That's good. Okay, here's one, but it's in the past. But that's okay. It was the recent past. It like just happened.
Okay.
Maybe it'll happen again. So my son had his first soccer game, which I coach his team, and we won our first game, and it reminded me why sports are fun.
That's major.
It really is fun.
Did they celebrate so hard? Like, did they
kind of like, no, I don't, it was definitely not like, it was not a pretty game to watch. Like, no, there was no brilliant soccer being played. There were like moments, but they were sort of like unintentionally great. Like that's kind of where we are. But obviously the coaching is brilliant. So they're been 10x. But I don't know. It's just fun to see. I think my moments of joy are always in a release, a way of like get out of. I'm inclined to be serious, and I love the joyfulness moments, which I often orient towards my kids, because they're the thing that allows me to be like, something unimportant, but actually way more important is this. And to merge that with sports was really fun. We won. It was like classic. It was so hot. We had popsicles. It was like all of those like throwbacky things.
Classic. Yes.
So that was nice.
Love this.
And then that actually reminds me of a current and future joy of this week, which is that you know how you get in modes of what genre of music you're interested in listening to, like it, and you're like, I want to be in that mode, but like I'm just not. I finally got into my like 80s, 90s mode and rediscovered a playlist that I had made called My Old iPod.
So good. She shared it with me. She hasn't followed.
Oh, I did. You're right.
We need to figure out how to like post that somehow.
I know. We need to share more of our playlists. But it started, as all things do, with a ride with Robin Arzon, and it was an 80s ride, and it started with Peter Gabriel, In Your Eyes, which was so like the perfect entry point to get back into that state of, I don't know, angst, but power, but frustration, but it's all going to be okay. I don't know. And I think also the weather is
totally
like a cozy rain feels very
In Your Eyes vibes.
Yeah. So anyways, then I got in that jam, and that's been a nice change from, otherwise we listen to like Haim, which is great. The Midnight, which maybe no one ever has heard. I'm really into Moody Judy. Should we just go on a like music riff right now? Everyone should listen to Moody Judy.
I think you and Jason are literally the Midnights.
That's true.
Sorry.
No, that can't be true. Though we did make a sick music video. Oh, Arizona also top of my list. But anyway, I digress. Good job summoning the joy. Great job. Thank you to all of us for talking to Lexi. Thank you to Lexi for talking to us. Yeah. And thank you to your very kind child for mostly
rockstar,
like being quiet through the whole thing. Like, I don't know how that's possible. Anyway, cool. Another one of the books. Right. Inspired. I'm going to go give 75%. That's my goal. Because my 75% is 125%. So
you're like,
everyone go give 75%. Actually, Amy Poehler famously talked about this on her podcast recently, Good Hang, which I highly recommend, although it's obviously not as good as ours. She says, someone's like, why did you start this podcast or something? And she was talking about how she was like sick of all of like men out there just sort of like half-assing shit. And she was like, this is my opportunity to just like kind of not give my all.
I love that.
And like kind of phone it in and like run a podcast. So anyways, so like let's go out and crush it with 75%. I know this is so easy for me. This is unfortunately not my 75%, but I'm going to aim to lower my output.
You're 125%.
But Amy has a whole staff. She was like Spotify is running the thing.
It's different for her.
But Amy, if you could come on our podcast, maybe you could tell me how to really turn down my 120 bucks. Good things. All right. Okay. I love you. Okay. Good luck out there. Thank you so much for joining us. Please remember to like and subscribe so you don't miss an episode and we can reach even more rock stars like you. The Mothers is a production of Backline Media.
shining a light on those who carry the team.